about one of the more popular things that are discussed, certainly among the Palestinian people, is the Nakba, and I wonder if you can explain how that fits in to all the stuff you just showed on that map. How does that fit into what happened, I guess, after 1948?
Well, in fact, all the people who used to live in this brown area, in fact, had to leave. And you even had, in some areas, and in fact, more than this territory, because even on the 14th May 1948, as independence was declared by Israel, they had taken more territory than just the brown territory that you have on the map. As a result, in fact, most of the Palestinians had to leave, and they regrouped in areas such as Gaza today, for instance, because Gaza is made up by refugees from the Nakba. I'm sorry. In 1948, so they had to go. Some remained on the spot, and some adjusted, and probably they accepted this situation. Others had to flee, and that's the whole Nakba result of this non-respect of the international UN resolution.
And I wonder if I could ask Colonel, in the interest of time here, because I don't want to get too bogged down on the minutiae here, but at what point did the Gaza Strip get literally cordoned off so that it's fenced in, and why did that not happen in the West Bank?
Well, I will come later on that. The problem of the West Bank is that it's a complicated topic, because, in fact, the West Bank was part of Jordan, or Transjordan, so to say, or no, Jordan. And, in fact, the problem is that Jordan tried to protect and to keep, in the 1948 war, Jordan tried to keep that territory for themselves. And the Gaza Strip, in fact, had been more or less agreed upon by the Israeli to push the refugees into. So it was already a refugee camp, if you want, already in 1948 at this stage. And later, Egypt, it was an Egyptian territory, by the way. So Egypt tolerated that. And you had more or less the same situation as the Israeli wants to do now by pushing people out of Rafah. Exactly the same situation. And that's what you had in 1948. So the Israelis were literally pushed into that. Other refugees were pushed out of the Palestine territory. You had these refugees in Lebanon, in Syria, in Jordan, in Egypt. And that prompted the creation of the UNRWA, the UN agency for the refugees. That was UNHCR didn't exist at that point, and the UNRWA, which was in the middle of a controversy a few months ago.
Yeah, right.
The UNRWA was specifically created for the Israelis, for the Palestinian refugees, in fact, because there was no international institution to help these refugees. And that's exactly the situation that we had in 1948. But interestingly, it's interesting to see that, as you see, the resolution from the 29th of November, but one day before, the CIA wrote a report for President Truman, a national intelligence estimate. And it's advised President Truman not to accept this partition plan. And it explained why. And this is a very interesting document, by the way, because it showed that the analysts of the CIA at that time were brilliant, literally. I just read it for the people who cannot read. In the long run, no Zionist in Palestine will be satisfied with the territorial arrangement of the partition settlement. Even the more conservative Zionists will hope to obtain the whole of the Negev, Western Galilee, the city of Jerusalem, and eventually all of Palestine. The extremists demand not only all Palestine, but Transjordan as well. They will probably undertake aggressive action to achieve these ends. In the chaos which will follow the implementation of the partition, atrocities will undoubtedly be committed by Arab fanatics. Such action will be given wide publicity and will even be exaggerated by the Jewish propaganda. The Arabs will be accused of aggression, whatever the actual circumstances may be. It's
Holy
interesting
crap.
because
Oh, man.
it's interesting because you could almost take every word of that paragraph for today, to describe today's situation. So you see that even the CIA was not so keen to have this partition plan because it was doomed to fail to some extent.
Yeah, I mean, failure was baked in for all the reasons I just mentioned there. Do you know? Did your history uncover why the president of the United States decided to ignore that advice and did in fact recognize Israel's independence?
Well, there are different assessment on that, because of course the role of the Jewish lobby was apparently quite significant in the US at the time, and also in UK, and UK was the mandatory power in Palestine. So probably that comes from there. But there was also an important aspect that we shouldn't forget, is that we were just out of the Second World War, and nothing to we don't want to go deeper into that, because it's self-explanatory and obvious that the atrocities that were committed against the Jews during World War II were instrumental to make people understand that they needed their own territory. The problem was not so much to give them a territory. The problem was how this territory should be, in fact, divided and provided to the Jews. And this is interesting because the Arabs at that time had in mind to have a Palestine state that would integrate both populations. So it was not designed to be a fully Arab Palestine. They accepted to have a Jewish community and Jewish communities within this territory. The problem is that the Jews wanted their own territory. And that makes the big difference. That's the reason why CIA noticed that.